Canada didn't get rich from housing. It got addicted to it. And if that sounds dramatic, let me ask you something real. Do you feel like you're doing everything right? Working harder, earning more than a few years ago? Yet somehow you're falling behind. Rent keeps climbing. Home prices feel untouchable. Saving feels pointless. And every month, life gets tighter, not easier. What makes this scarier is that on paper, everything looks fine. The economy is growing, GDP is up. The headlines say we're doing okay. So why does it feel like you're running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up? No matter how fast you move, you're still losing ground. This video isn't just about expensive houses. It's about how an entire country slowly mistook debt for prosperity, how money stopped building businesses, and started chasing walls and roofs instead. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand what went wrong. You'll understand why this system refuses to fix itself and what that means for the rest of us. And this is where it stops being abstract, because this system didn't just reshape markets, it rewired people. Let's talk about a couple you probably know, even if you don't know their names. They bought a modest home years ago. Nothing fancy, a stretch but manageable. Then time passed. Prices rose, the neighborhood improved, and suddenly that same house was worth far more than they paid. On paper, they were winning. Friends congratulated them. Articles told them they were building wealth. They felt smart, responsible, ahead of the game. But here's the uncomfortable question. What did they actually build? The house didn't change. It didn't shelter more people. It didn't produce anything new. Only the number changed. And that number unlocked something powerful. Access to money that felt earned, even though nothing new had been created. The bank called, not to warn them, not to slow them down, to congratulate them. "You've got equity sitting there," the voice said. "Why let it go to waste?" And just like that, money appeared. A bigger car, a renovated kitchen, maybe a vacation, maybe another property. It didn't feel like debt. It felt like a reward. This is how the illusion spreads. When asset prices rise faster than income, people don't feel rich, they feel validated. They borrow against the future to make the present feel normal. And for a while it works. Spending rises, stores stay busy, the economy looks alive. But underneath it, something fragile is forming. Because this kind of borrowing only works when nothing ever goes wrong, when rates stay low, when prices only move one direction, when tomorrow always bails out today. Then one variable changes, rates tick up, payments rise. Suddenly, money that felt invisible becomes very real. And here's the part no one likes to say out loud. For a growing number of households, their payments aren't even reducing the debt anymore. They're just keeping it from exploding. Some loans are now stretching so long, they outlive the people paying them. Not because anyone planned it that way, but because the system quietly adjusted the rules to keep the illusion intact. This is where things cross a line, because when debt stops shrinking and simply gets rolled forward into the future, you're no longer building wealth. You're preserving a story. And once an economy starts doing that at scale, it doesn't just slow down, it changes shape. And in the next part, we're going to look at how this illusion didn't stay contained inside housing. It spread outward. It pulled the entire economy into it. Before we go any further, quick pause. If this is already helping you see the system a little clearer, not louder, not angrier, just clearer. Subscribing tells YouTube this kind of long-form thinking still matters. All right, now let's look at what this system actually turned into. Because once the illusion takes hold, the rules quietly change. Traditionally, debt works like this. You borrow, you pay it down, and over time it shrinks. But when housing prices are treated as untouchable, shrinking debt becomes optional. Instead of asking, "Can this be paid off?" the system starts asking, "How long can we stretch it?" That's how you end up with payments that no longer reduce the balance. They just slow the damage. Interest doesn't disappear, it gets postponed, rolled forward, added back into the pile. From the outside, everything looks stable. No crash, no panic. But underneath, the economy starts behaving strangely. People are paying more every month, yet owning less of what they borrowed. Work feels heavier, progress feels slower, and the future feels foggy. This is what a zombie system looks like. Not dead, not alive, just moving, without getting anywhere. The scary part isn't that this exists, It's that it works well enough to continue. Because as long as prices don't fall sharply, as long as defaults stay hidden, as long as the story holds, the system prefers delay over repair. But delay has consequences. When households spend more income servicing old debt, they spend less everywhere else. Restaurants feel it first, then small businesses, then hiring slows. Nothing explodes. It just quietly tightens. And here's where most explanations stop short. They frame this as a housing problem, or a debt problem, or a bad luck timing problem. It's bigger than that. Because once an economy reorganizes itself around preserving asset values instead of creating new ones, everything downstream adjusts, investment hesitates, risk-taking disappears, innovation gets replaced with optimization. You don't build new engines, you polish the old ones and hope they last. And that brings us to the next layer of this story. Because housing didn't just reshape debt, it reshaped growth itself. In the next part, we're going to look at how something that looks like expansion, population, GDP, headline growth, ended up making the pressure even worse. This is where the story gets confusing, because on the surface, it looks like things are still growing. Headlines point to GDP, population numbers keep rising. On paper, the country looks busy, active, expanding. So people ask a reasonable question. If we're growing, why does everything feel tighter? Why do wages feel stuck? Why does rent eat more of every paycheck? Why does life feel harder, not easier? The answer is simple and uncomfortable. Growth can happen without progress. Imagine adding more people to a dinner table. Without adding more food, the table looks bigger, the room looks fuller, but each person gets less. That's what's been happening here. Population surge faster than housing, faster than infrastructure, faster than wages. Not because growth is bad, but because growth without preparation creates pressure. More workers competing for the same jobs, more renters chasing the same apartments, more demand layered onto a system that was already stretched. And when labor becomes abundant, wages don't rise and they stall. Why invest in productivity? Why automate? Why take risks building something new when you can just hire more people to tread water? So companies adjust, not upward, but sideways. That they survive, they don't scale. And the cost of that adjustment shows up everywhere else. Rents rise faster than income. Savings disappear. Down payments drift out of reach. Two realities begin to form. One group already owns assets. They benefit from scarcity. The other doesn't. They absorb it. Same country, same economy, completely different experiences. And here's the quiet twist. This pressure doesn't register as a crisis. There's no crash, no sirens, just a slow squeeze. Each year, life costs a little more effort for the same outcome. And that's why this phase is so dangerous, because nothing looks broken enough to fix. Which brings us to the moment where the system finally had a choice. Let prices adjust, or step in to stop it. And in the next part, we're going to look at what happened when the system decided it couldn't afford to let things fall. At this point, something else starts to happen, quietly. The country doesn't just get more expensive, it splits. Not geographically, not politically, but economically. Two versions of the same country begin to exist side by side. In one version, things feel manageable. If you already own property, rising prices don't feel like pressure. They feel like protection. Your home isn't just shelter, it's a buffer, a safety net, a source of confidence. When costs rise, you adjust. When rates move, you refinance. When life gets tighter, you borrow against what you already have. The system bends, but it bends for you. In the other version of the country, none of that exists. If you don't own assets, every increase hits you directly. Rent rises first, then groceries, then transportation. There's no buffer, no equity, no place to push the pressure except into your own life. Savings become impossible. Plans become conditional. Everything gets delayed. Not because of bad choices, but because the entry fee keeps moving. These two realities don't just feel different. They produce different lives. In one Canada, people talk about timing the market, unlocking value, letting their money work for them. In the other, people talk about roommates in their 30s, about moving back home, about putting relationships on hold. because housing eats half their income. Same jobs and same education, same effort, completely different outcomes. And the longer this goes on, the harder it becomes to cross from one side to the other. High rents prevent saving. No savings means no down payment. No down payment means permanent renting. The ladder doesn't just get taller, it gets pulled up. This is how inequality becomes structural. Not loud, not dramatic, just persistent. And once a system reaches this point, it starts shaping behavior in ways that don't show up in GDP. People stop taking risks. They stop moving for opportunity. They stop imagining a future that looks better than the present. Not because they lack ambition, but because the cost of trying feels too high. This is the part of the story that rarely makes headlines, because nothing is technically broken. But the social contract is quietly thinning. And once that happens, the consequences don't arrive all at once. They arrive over years, which is why the next question matters more than anything else. If a system is slowly splitting its population into insiders and outsiders, what happens to a country when too many people realize they're locked on the wrong side? At this point, something important should have happened. Prices should have eased. Pressure should have released. The system should have corrected itself. That's how markets are supposed to work. But this one couldn't, because by the time the cracks became visible, too much depended on things staying exactly the way they were. Homes weren't just places to live anymore. They were retirement plans, collateral, political promises. Millions of people had their entire financial future tied to one number. That could not go down. And once that happens, you no longer have a free market. You have a protected one. Not because anyone sat in a room and planned it, but because the incentives locked into place. If prices fall sharply, households panic. Banks wobble. Governments lose elections. So when the system starts to shake, the response isn't patience, it's intervention. Rules stretch, timelines extend, pain gets delayed, not removed, delayed. From the outside, it looks like stability. From the inside, it's pressure building. Every adjustment meant to soften the blow also makes the system harder to unwind later. And that creates a strange kind of paralysis. No one wants to be the first to accept losses. No one wants to admit the story's broken. So everyone agrees to keep it going just a little longer. This is where the cost stops being financial and starts becoming human. People delay their lives, they postpone families. They stay stuck in places they didn't choose, because moving would mean starting over. Others make a different choice. They leave, not dramatically, quietly. They take their skills, their ambition, their best years, to places where progress still feels possible. And the longer this goes on, the more the system selects for the wrong things. Stability over growth, preservation over creation, comfort today over momentum tomorrow. Which brings us to the final question. If a system is designed to avoid falling at all costs, what does it become? And in the last moments of this video, we're going to talk about where that road actually leads and why it may be more dangerous than a crash. So where does this road lead? Not to collapse, not to chaos, something quieter. A place where prices stay high, opportunity stays scarce, and progress slowly fades into maintenance. Where the economy keeps moving, but nowhere new. This was never just a housing story. It was a story about where a country chose to send its future. When more energy goes into protecting assets, then creating value, that growth doesn't disappear. It freezes. If this helped you see the system a little more clearly, subscribe. The next video breaks down how some countries avoided this trap before it was too late. Thanks for watching.